Fabian, Lukasz, if you're still there online, Emille, Sarah, and Gergely to join on the stage. Okay. I will get the ball rolling with a question for, well, all of you. What are the lessons being learned? What lessons are the most important ones that have been learned so far in building these multi-messenger platforms?
Somebody has to start. I mean, yes. I mean, one lesson that I took from talk by Phil is at some point that you start setting out with one goal and you end up at a very different place. So all of platforms I know had a very focused aim, and then at some point you enlarge that aim and you're building something else. And the other thing is, what I tried to mention earlier on, is that most of these platforms have very good ideas and very enthusiastic people and are being set up, but then funding moves away and people move away and the idea dies, and 5 years later people come around with the same idea and try to rebuild the thing. So the long-term sustainability of many of the tools is not very stable, I think. But
yeah, I think my perspective from the tool is just to be a more eye look, right? So you can have many functionalities because you want to, feel one goal of someone and someone and someone, so you add functionality. But then to try to keep to be at the high level that if someone starts to use this tool, right, it just sees the global picture. And so I think it's very tough to convey like all the functionalities that someone wants with like someone that just use part of the tool. So there is this kind of thing. That's why I think you developed, for example, mobile app, to be just like the key feature. So yeah, it's this challenge, I think, for me that we need still to solve.
Yeah, I want to connect to this, that some tools are appearing and then there is no more funding, and then we have to kind of reinvent the same tool. So I had a similar experience with tools that compute the Hubble constant automatically based on some observations in the galaxy catalog. So we did that by hand for a time, and then just randomly saw that, oh, there is a tool that someone created, but they never came to a conference. I just randomly find that website, and then we were very happy that, okay, now we don't have to do it for all of the events. And then just as randomly 1 year later, the website didn't work anymore. So I think it would be much better if we had some collection of, okay, what are all the multi-messenger tools that we are having? Because there are so many new tools all the time, and we should keep track of them. Because for example, for my work, maybe someone already did parts of that, and I don't want to just reinvent all that stuff.
Yeah, I also think that just complementing what was said, I agree with everything was said. I think maybe one of the things in Think at least that we learned is that we should start from the end. So you talk to someone that have a scientific question. So I really want to do this. And that tool that you need to develop for that specific purpose will be absurdly niche. Like it's very, very specific for what that person can do. But at least, especially for securing funding and stuff like that, you are sure that there's going to be a justification for the tool, at least for one science case. In the end, our experience is that that tool, most of the times with small tweaks ended up being useful for other people too. But at least we have one very clear scientific goal for whatever is doing. And another thing that I think that is lesson learned is that communication is very difficult. So I had and I remember I have a friend that is a designer, and when this artificial intelligence thing started coming up, I asked her, like, you are not afraid that like you're going to lose your job, because I can ask the AI to make a logo for me and it will do it. And she said, well, for that to work, people must know what they want. If you know what you want, the artificial intelligence will do it for you. I'm safe. Like, my clients have no idea what they want. So I think for us, it's more or less the same thing. Like, the initial conversation with the user requires a lot of patience and the developing of a dialogue to make sure that everybody is understanding what is happening. Sometimes we take for granted that just because the other person is an astronomer, we are talking about the same thing. And most of the time that's not the case. And that initial conversation is very difficult.
It was my turn. I hope you can hear me. I'm huge on the screen, I can see. So I would pick on the communication aspect, and I think also communication with both users, but also between us, people developing the tools, because we are very happy to develop our tools internally. But when we start, for example, meetings like this are extremely useful, and I really regret I cannot be there and talk over coffee and lunch breaks with people having similar tools, so that then we build interfaces. We happen to be, with Fabian, we've attended a couple of meetings in person, and thanks to these discussions, we now are able to communicate. Our tools are communicating with each other. So I think this is the key. And yet another aspect I would add here is that the time domain astronomy in general, and transient in particular, are evolving so quickly that it's really hard to catch up with things evolving and new things and new needs appearing from the community. So we really need to be cautious. What is the community now in requesting? Thank you.
Any comments from members of the audience?
It's actually just replying a bit back to Fabian. It's not even replying, it's just going back to the same thing. How do you think we can deal with this sustainability? I mean, it's really important that those tools carry on for a long time. That's how you acquire new users and new functionality. What can we do to enable that?
I don't know. I mean, it's a much broader issue of project-related funding. I mean, you get much easier funding for a new shiny idea than to just keep an existing system running and improve it at the margins, right? But there's an intrinsic problem on how we fund platforms and things like that. And I guess we had a discussion with Phil at that.
Yeah,
So-
it's going to, I mean, widen out, there's this, you mentioned, or you, Fabian, mentioned, but other people did have touched on the whole sustainability, the whole long term, and so missions tend to plan that their data are going to be available, but frankly, data are not very helpful in 30 years' time without metadata at the minimum and software. And so, we might find that HereSoft and Chow and whatever, optical things, Sextractor still exist or are maintained in some way. But the thing that you were talking about, having been able to assign a DOI to some data or something, to actually be able to reproduce somebody's old pipeline. I've created a whole bunch of tools for this for Swift. Some of you guys have, you were talking about science, some of your talked about science-ready, publication-ready data products. Those are pretty custom bits of software. And I don't know if within any of your infrastructures, there has been thought to how we can provide sustainability for that. Because I know that, if you turn off my servers at Leicester when they stop being funded, my software is not portable at the moment, and it's going to take a lot of time and effort to make it portable. And then I've got to find somewhere to port it to that's going to long-term archive and allow people to go and run and respect these DOIs or whatever forever. I don't know if that conversation is starting anywhere that I'm not aware of in collaborations. It really needs to. And I guess, Natalie wants to comment. I'd like to hear what the panel are planning on that with their infrastructures. But yeah, go on now.
And I think the point is also the the viewpoint of what software is changing. So in the past, the software was a package that you could download from GitHub, and then it's there forever, and you can download it 5 years from now and 10 years from now. But today, I think most of our tools and platforms are more than just a single package. There's more like the infrastructure that you put in place and the connections to other services and databases and distributed systems, and that's much harder to preserve in the long term, because you need computing resources, you need to pay for your databases, you need to update the interfaces to the changing environment because somebody else changes their API and things like that. So it's not only just putting the software, the code somewhere, and then people can run it. You have to set up the whole system, right?
I think that one to finance these tools, there is, of course, like this kind of infrastructure as ACME, right? I think it's a success to maintain this tool, but I think there is another way to, I think, finance it. Is because you know, when we develop a tool, it is with usually with student or postdoc, and we maybe do not define well the requirement. So there is for me the externalization, like to ask money, like 20K to ask some coders, right? From, I mean, auto entrepreneur or something like this, to build part of your functionality. But this requires from the science part, right, to tell exactly what are your future. But I think this is something, if you have 20K, 40K, even 100K in your grants, to try to maintain it. And it is something that maybe we do not develop enough. For example, me, I'm practicing that, but it is hard because you as a scientist, you need to define clearly, you know, like the industry, like your requirement. And it does not allow some kind of development when it is, you know, there is no border, there is no real border between development and feature.
I think so. I'm not sure I completely agree with that. I think that the way we develop things in science is very different by the main reason why we are doing it. I think for me, whenever I hear these conversations about maintaining something, let's be honest, we are all oversubscribed, right? Like everyone works much more than what is on paper. And when you talk about maintaining something in science, you mean hiring people. So in the end, if we had money to hire enough people so these people would have stable jobs that they would be here for until the end of their careers, could you maintain all of their stuff? Yes. It is, I understand that this is not possible. And I understand that maybe the projects and like task by task is the only way that we have that we can do it. But the final thing, the reality is that if we had enough money for a long-term personnel, this would solve only by the tradition of the community itself.
If I may add to this, I think what makes us, well, from my experience of running the BHTOM and similar platforms so far, what keeps us sustainable are the publications, right? So this is what all the reviewers look at. So I think so that would be my request essentially to the community, that, you know, please use our services. Clearly make it, you know, acknowledge the grants we have, and you know, if there is more papers using our tools, then it's more likely our tools will be used. In a way, it's kind of like a Darwinian approach here. You know, the services which are most used will survive, and the weakest will not. But I think this is what can be done now already to essentially to use our services as frequently as possible.
Yeah, so I had two comments actually. The first one I'll just answer back to Phil. So I think there is some hope. I mean, I'm going to talk about XMM again. because that's what I know the best. But so ESA has made a policy now to make sure that source code is distributed. It's a really big job because actually the source code actually relies on a lot of other things. So that's all being taken out. So all the code is being rewritten to make it something that can be distributed without any legal problems at all. So all of those things are going to be out there in the near future, and they're going to do that the same thing for other missions from ESA. So I think people are thinking about making sure that their source code is actually completely distributed. So in 50 years' time, if someone wants to take that, they can do that, which is. Yeah, but they tried to make it there. They updated it as well, so it is actually not relying on those sort of things. But, yeah. So that's the first thing. Yeah, the sustainability thing. Yeah, we've just been hearing, and I agree. I agree what Lukasz just said. I mean, yeah, probably the strongest is carry on, I guess. But I guess something like what was Tyler just presented, that's financed by NASA, some big institution, and you could probably be fairly sure that there's going to be financing for a long period of time. And I think maybe is that one of the ways to go forward. Because yeah, it's finding that financing. So yeah, you could be brilliant, but maybe someone decides to cut your funding, and that's a big problem.
I exactly have a comment on that, because I really think that sometimes things works if they come from the top. And I really think that we are in a moment, at least in Europe, where our major big things like ESA or ESO or things like that are moving really too slowly in this direction compared to what's going on in US, that maybe they were a bit behind in the sense that there were even less open access and even less user-friendly stuff and things like that, but they catch the question and for transient, and they are developing many things. I had the occasion to participate to some of the meetings they do in the TDAM, the head of NASA with the other space agency that are all invited, but I saw no reaction. And I must say that also from the ESO side, for example, there are things that the community is asking since years, that is, for example, to have common calls for this kind of science, ground-based, space-based. This division is useless, is meaningless for our science, and it's here that we are asking for that. And from the other side is like if we have a kind of barrier that is no, but those are the agency of the community, and the community is asking for this. And I think there is a kind of stalled situation, and it is not beneficial at all, and that it would really, things could move better and faster if those big institutions that are organization of the community would act a bit more in this direction and towards the needs of their communities.
So I take all of these points entirely on board. I think I was thinking slightly differently in as much as I get, if we could employ people to keep maintaining software, we wouldn't know in time. But I'm thinking about, what happens when Swift comes crashing down into the atmosphere, I die, and, whatever, the future, the data will still exist. And there are tools that go beyond, like you say, Fabian, beyond infrastructure. There are tools that, maybe someone can still download and run the XMM SaaS, but can they, I don't know, what high level, so I guess a lot of high level tools are embedded into XMM SaaS, aren't they? But, especially if we go the way the MODA is going, that you can have, here is a data product I produced for my paper, and here is a link that you go to, and that link automatically pulls all of the metadata, puts the pipeline together and runs it for you. There's an infrastructure behind that. And, money isn't all we need. We need in the same way that there are plans and there's pressure from governments and so on to have long-term data archiving, I think we need long-term processing infrastructure kind of archiving. And so I was wondering if that's something you guys have factored in, or is this something we should be looking at to do that the next EU proposal should be to build this kind of infrastructure? Or have any of you guys got plans that you're thinking beyond the ends of your grants already? What am I going to do with my infrastructure when it runs out, when I retire, when the project ends? Does the infrastructure go or does it get archived in some usable way? That's kind of where I'm thinking.
Just to drop the name, in Europe, there's a big effort, the European Open Science Cloud, where from a very top-down approach, again, the European Commission tries to bring together various communities and try to form these data archives and data lakes and associate that to computing resources and easy access, in quotation marks. And so I'm not aware where on some practical day-to-day usage and examples of that as of yet, but I think the idea is there to provide these platforms and services, and we have to see if this is realized over the next years, I think.
Okay. Moving on to a second topic then. We talked a lot this morning about following up transient and multi-messenger events. How have we learned to organize or to best organize follow-up of these events? Is it through the use of catalogs and value-added catalogs? Is it through using early alerts to help trigger our decision pipelines?
Well, we don't have a lot of follow-up, in fact, to be honest. I think it's more about what is new from 03 to 04 is to use data that were for optical, that telescopes did not trigger on this, right? Like they were observing the sky and it's matching, it is matching the GW sky map. So yeah, I think about this test for that is not dedicating to a closing event, but we have like few cases that it was observing the right forest part. I think for the galaxy catalogs, it was working well, right? It's ongoing, right? I mean, nothing to say, but in fact, I think the landscape is changing based on which observatory are there, and there are more and more wide fields. That's why it's this new functionality. And so, what is the place, for smaller aperture or fainter telescope with less sensitivity? So it's all of that. That's we are learning, and so it's changing based on the. Also, I think there is another parameters. Maybe you didn't say, but we didn't have another BNS counterpart detection. So after that, there was a lot of grants and blooming, and yeah, we're gonna develop this tool. How are we gonna, okay, there is this workshop that's great, but how many, important, powerful will be the GW science, right? If there is no discovery for, finger crossed, up to October. So this is a thing that we need to think, because, no discovery means like, how we can tell that to have more funding for this. So.
Thank you. Yeah, from the catalog part, I think there are no big issues at the moment. But yeah, what I saw is that, of course, there are several platforms that try to connect the different teams who would do follow-up. But it's kind of a problem as well, because it would be much better if we could get all of the people who are interested in the follow-up. But what I see is that there are still a lot of smaller teams who just want to do their own stuff, and they don't want to coordinate their follow-up efforts with any other teams. So yeah, I'm not sure what can we do with that, or whether we should do anything with that.
I also think, it's less an issue of tools and platforms and data availability and catalogs and things like that. It's more sociological problem of community and people realizing that it's useful to share information and collaborate and draw synergies from that. And Susanna mentioned these large collaborations on sharing the ESO resources, and I think this is one step in this direction, but there are many other wavelengths domains, and as you said, smaller groups that are not yet participating in this global community effort. And I know, Susanna, you wanted to jump in.
I wanted to change a bit the direction, in the sense that, to me, okay, maybe we will have an event from here to the October. Fine, would be great. Exact. No doubt about it. But to me, we are entering a period where it's not GW is not the main topic for, and will not be the main topic for a few years. But the thing is, how do we organize, how do we react to LSST alerts? Because the network that you mentioned, that maybe now you're using mostly for GW and so on, but those for sure in the next years we will work to follow LSST alerts. So it is not clear to me if there is things ready in this direction, like if the brokers also develop kind of, or someone else, I don't know, but also develop kind of, as it was the Pesto Marshall, so things like that, where you have, I don't know, supernova candidates or kilonova candidates, orphanalpha candidates, TDs, something like that, in different pages, different tools, where where the community can go and see what are the events that LSST detected, what is the information available from LSST, from other telescopes, etc. And so to see what can be done more, where to put the telescope time that someone else have, I don't know. So what's going on in this direction? Because it's soon. I mean, I know it will be not the first year. This okay, also we had recently in the SWIFT 20 meeting a talk by Federica Bianco. It is clear that things will, I think we will have to wait 1 year more to really go in this era or LSST transients. But what's going on?
Yeah, so from the LSST side, there are communication protocols that are being put in place. We had a few talks about the TON, which is the Target of Observation Manager, where all of the brokers, they provide alerts and candidates in different manners. I think the most thing that we have to keep in mind is that there's going to be a lot of candidates. So each facility that is thinking about following up some LSST alerts will have to have a very clear idea what they want to do, because there is going to be a lot of everything. So each broker has their own way of developing different filters for specific communities. So for example, we are working with the solar system people because they want to follow something specific. But all of these should be preparations that are done with the broker teams in advance before the weird alerts start going up. How do you receive this data also depends on how you want to communicate. So we have bots, we have Kafka streams. There are many different ways where these alerts can be delivered to the user. From the TOM, if I understand correctly, and I'm not sure if I'm saying correct things here, but it's more for the coordination of the telescopes itself and not the decision of the alerts. But I think my answer to that is that all of the brokers have a different way of delivering a candidate for a specific science case. And I think it's a matter for the communities to communicate, this communication to go both ways. So we make sure that once the data starts coming in, you're actually receiving the data that you want to receive.
I will just add to this, especially in the context of the LSST. I think once the alerts start flowing, at least this is our experience from Gaia and other surveys, is that we will mostly focus on the very bright end, first, let's say, for first year or so to see what we get, which is good for the telescopes we have already now. Everything, 17 is the saturation limit for LSST, so 17, 20, I think this still will be our comfort zone for the very first years, and this is what we've been used to in previous surveys. It will take us some time to go after the very faint ones, which will dominate, of course. So very first couple of months of alerts, it will be the bright ones, and I would like to emphasize again the role of the archives, photometric archives, for the beginning of the LSST. So from BH-TOM perspective, actually, we take whatever we are given. So all the filtering is happening at a higher level, and then if there are candidates thrown into our system, then immediately you can see the history of each object. So you can immediately kill the object if you see that this is some boring CV, if you're not into CVs, of course, right? So I think this is how I envisage the very first years, actually, with the LSST coming soon.
I mean, very similar to what's true for the brokers is, of course, for the interfaces in the end. I mean, talking about AstroColibri, I mean, we are spending a lot of time currently preparing for that to improve the capabilities on filtering and down selection of alerts, so that every user can only see the events that is interesting for him. So if you're interested in TDEs, you only see TDE candidates, and if you're only interested in TDA candidates flagged by the laser broker, then we will and not think or only think or whatever, then you can hopefully be able to only see the events, because otherwise all the interfaces and the human interfaces will be overwhelmed, right? So we are currently preparing for that, and we'll see. I mean, if you manage to achieve that.
So
yeah.
So for me, the first step is clear. That is what you two mentioned. Is more than the step that is more of Lukasz or something like that. So fine, but I will receive all the hundreds alert of I'm interested, I don't know, in FBOT. I will receive the hundreds alert of possible candidate FBOTs. So I have two kind of questions. But if I want to see what are the observations that have been done on such FBOTs, do we have really a repository that is ready for all this amount of information? Are the actual TOMs ready to do this? And this is one question. The other question is that also to determine to classify such object, LSST, okay, the broker will be based on LSST data, but then to really classify them and be sure, because we will not be able to classify them with the first night of observation. We have 2 points, you will say nothing for most of these transients. So you will need more nights, but also information from other observatories. So is there anything in place to rerun classification in this sense, taking external information as well?
So what I can say is that inside the observations from the same object can be cross-matched with other sources that there are with different tools. So if the observations exist, probably there are some tools or within the brokers, or for example, AstroColibri or things similar, that you will use to cross-match with existing observations in other catalogs. For example, there is Sherlock also that allows you to do contextual information. So these tools, I think the answer to your question is these tools exist. How you are going to access that then depends on the point of entry that you are going to use to get the thing. Another thing is, even with 1 or 2 points, there will be machine learning classifications, which is also available. How much you trust the machine learning classification with 2 points it's a completely different question. But the classifications will exist and the probability will be available for this.
So I wanted to make a few comments sort of that are all connected to these things. So I think I think it's a good point that LSST is coming, and it will have a formative aspect to it. And if we don't, as a community, sort of act together, sure, we will do good stuff, but everyone on their own with their brokers and their setup that they, you know, their friends, and that's fine, but it's probably not the best we could do. So I think thinking about how we can actually work together as a community is a good thing. I think right now the landscape is not set up. You know, within, you know, I've been active in ZTF and growth, and there it's a small group, but you know, they have essentially everything covered. The brokers are integrated into Fritz, and so everything works together. And then you know what has been observed because it's maintained. It's actually seen. You can see on Fritz which data has been taken and which telescope has been triggered. So this sort of endpoint needs to be there. And I think we have an ansatz here. We have, you know, with what Sarah has presented, if the ACME sort of involved teams would say, all right, that would be our endpoint, then we would have a start. And then we could actually merge the data there. And eventually we'll get the overview. And then we'll be, you know, the teams working with this tool will be having an advantage. So I think we should be thinking a little bit more about how to organize ourselves. We should also think about, can we get Engrave people involved in this? And ePesto, you know, ePesto is maybe running out, but there will be something new coming. So can we build a community? And I think it's not just about the tools. It's really also, as someone said this today, it's about, you know, social, you know, communicating, but there needs to be a will, I think, to do it. But if we agree that this would be a good idea, then I think we should actually make sure it's being picked up also by ACME leadership, and it becomes some kind of joint vision, and then we move in this direction.
Just a clarification. I'm not sure if I'm understanding the suggestion, but I think it's very important to identify what is the role of each partner in this. I completely agree that maybe we could have something on top of the existing tools, but these will go beyond of the task of the brokers itself or of the other tools.
Doesn't have it yet. Yeah. It's just that all the tools exist. I mean, we have to almost do nothing extra. It's just that our will to say, all right, we move, you know, these are the brokers and they feed into this tool. And then we all, like, you know, get an account there. And then we start populating the Sky portal. As I said before, it's kind of useless if there's no extra data in it. Then you might as well work with your brokers initially. They all have some kind of way to interface it. It's only the extra, the comments, the extra spectroscopy data, the bookkeeping, that it becomes the sort of useful, but it requires a community to feed it. And if this community doesn't exist, well, then it's probably not being productive. So I think really the question to you and the audience is there, you know, would there be a wish to sort of join such an organizational thing?
I mean, just one word of caution. I mean, if I understand correctly, and Sarah can correct me, that tool would then only be available to the ACME community or the extended community, which would be another blocking point and another private island of information, right? That's why I want to make sure that it's not, right?
I don't understand the point, right? We need to, okay, because Sky Portal is at the center right now. Sky Portal, you say, yeah, it's working with ZTF and its follow-up partners. So what we try to do is to provide this technology, not the content, but this technology to European. It means like non-Asian and so on, like European and their collaborators. Now it's on the institution or us, the community, to say, are we going to share the data or we're going to share the high-level product? And I fully understand Susanna, and I'm completely 100% with her that, okay, I always say to my colleague on brokers that it's not only the broker information, it's also the enrichment. You call it the enrichment. The enrichment is done right now For people not in ZTF, you're part of ZTF, this is great. But in TNS, for example, it is done. But it's not the same as you have a comment on some experts on ZTF. You ask us to say, okay, give this information, but it's, I mean, if you're not part of SWAM, you're not access to the communication of SWAM if you're not part of ZTF. So this is, but the data.
Data sharing is a further step, but at least to have something where we can have the information. Saying there is a spectra and the redshift is 2, for example, is already something, even if I don't share the spectrum to you. But the information is there and collected and put it together with other information. So this, at least as a first step, I think that I don't imagine... I mean, I imagine that the entire community would be happy to have this, at least a space where to share this enrichment of information in addition to the broker results. That doesn't mean necessarily data sharing. It means having a place where all the information is collected. This object has been observed by this telescope at these frequencies. The magnitude that are being published are those ones. The spectrum, the result of the spectroscopy is this one. We have optical spectroscopy. We have X-ray data. I don't know, but at least this information, to have a space that where all this information is collected together, I think that everyone in the community agree.
So this can be done on maybe TNS, on Sky Portal, or on another tools, right? It's okay, right? The thing is that I'm not sure, to be honest, that we have a tool. For example, you say Fritz has some, develop some Gergely, let's say, filter, things like this. The question is like, me as user, for the moment, I need to go to GitHub on Think or others, right? Take my data or my collaborator and run it again, right? The thing is not providing to rerun with enrichment data. Is it possible maybe to do it in Sky Portal or other instance of the HTOM? I don't know. Yes, but we need to maybe develop, in fact, redo it again, with data that are available for X and Y, so for my sense, is not ready yet, but maybe I'm wrong, This brokers information and data plus the follow-up and running to reclassify with this enrichment. I don't think it is available yet.
We are going to have to finish the conversation there. Thank you very much to our panelists and everyone who spoke this morning and this week. Goodbye.